Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Destroy Manila podcast, where we talk about the sport of mixed martial arts and fight culture in the Philippines and in Asia. In case you missed the last episode, we talked to Coach Vince Soberano, an 8-time Muay Thai champ with over 100 pro fights and the owner of the prestigious Black Tiger Gym in China.
Today we will be talking about the cost of fighting. I'm JC Reyes.
Ako si Carl. Hello.
Not a lot of people know what is involved with how the fighters become who they are.
We're talking about this kasi recently there's a boxer who died, Maxim Dadashev.
Two boxers
Two
who
boxers
died within
died.
a week.
And there's, of course, the monetary cost of it. Then there's the toll on your body. And then there's the cost of everybody else making mistakes or not doing their jobs during the fight. I do a lot of grappling. I just finished competing in a catch wrestling competition, a luta libre competition dito sa Manila. It took a hell of a lot of time for somebody who has only been studying martial arts for around 4 years for myself. I think I've already maxed out at least 100K for over 3 years of training. Sabi nila gentle art daw yung jiu-jitsu, so I started with that. One of the big lies of jiu-jitsu is that it's a gentle art and you won't get hurt and it's technique over everything else. So the cost of that is, first of all, the concrete stuff like gym membership or academy membership, di ba? Kasi mas gusto mong makatipid dahil yung per class na walk-in medyo mahal. Which is around, I think, for a Makati Academy, 500 to 600 for just one session, just one class. You started with FMA, right?
Yeah, I started with FMA in college like almost everybody does. My formal study of martial arts started with Muay Thai striking 12 years ago.
Well, yung arnis mo ba? Magkano yan?
Nung nag-start
Ayun.
ako mag-arnis with a local master, I think that was like 500 a session din.
But what kind of equipment did you need?
The sticks, that was pretty much it. And we were practicing at the public park.
What about like, there's uniforms now, di ba?
Now there are uniforms, but when I trained, I was just wearing basketball shorts.
How many sticks does an arnisador need?
I
Two
think
sets?
it's at least 2 pairs.
So, sa grappling, gi, which is damn expensive, the cheapest is like 2.5 and it's, if you do it more than twice a week, you'll need 2 kasi hindi mo naman malalaban yung gi mo. So, the higher end gis can go up to like 50,000. Yung mga scramble na brand, ganyan. Obviously, if you're rich, you can afford that. But if you're not, you're stuck with the 2.5 gis, which will run out pretty much before the year ends if you're rolling regularly. There's also something called no-gi, where you just learn and practice with rash guards and shorts. If your fitness isn't up to par and your legs, like mine, aren't exactly developed because of all the sitting and writing I've been doing over the years, you need compression wear. And all those, like, siguro 2,000 to 3,000 per item yun of clothing. So that's for weekend warriors, right? Did you ever compete in arnis?
I never competed in arnis.
About Muay
Actually,
Thai?
Muay Thai, 2 cancelled fights.
You canceled fights!
They just decided that they didn't want me to compete in those tournaments. I spent at least 2-3 months for those fights. That's at least 1,800 pesos a month. Back then, that was in 2007.
Was there a price to pay for joining the competition?
Yeah, pay to play for about 1,500 pesos.
And this was an amateur fight with helmets.
This was an
and
amateur fight back in 2007.
guards, shin guards, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Okay. Were there regulation helmets or did you need to bring your own?
The only thing that you would need to provide would be your gloves, your groin guard, and of course, your own mouth guard.
For grappling competitions, I did my first one last 2018. It was Asia Pacific submission only tournament. The entrance there was, I think, there was an early bird price which cuts off stuff at minus 200, minus 300. Pero binayaran ko was kulang-kulang 1.9, I think. And the recent one that I did, which was catch wrestling rules, 300. This is the thing with boutique, non-big organization organized tournaments sa grappling. What they do is, konti lang yung men per weight classes. It was just 8 men. And there were only 3 weight classes. The big thing with that is walang age brackets. Kasi you need to be fighting people your age or at least your generation, right? Because it's hard to fight a 20-year-old and a 40-year-old. Definitely. So, nahirapan ako. Natalo ako very badly, if I might add. There's no shame in it. Anything like IBJJF, ASJJF, yung ADCC, Asia Pacific organizations. These are fun fights for yourself that kumikita yung ano, and they give you, you're basically paying for your medal.
In my case, sa Muay Thai before, the longest preparation that I had for a fight that did not happen was 3 months. Siningil sa akin nung coach ko back then was 1,800 pesos per month for the gym fee. Had to buy Muay Thai shorts, the whole attire, buy new gloves.
How much did that cost?
That was probably 2,000-3,000 pesos a pair.
Umabot na tayo ng 7
7,000 na.
for 3 months.
For 3 months. Competition grade na hand drops, which they require usually. 700 pesos siguro yun. And then, syempre, the gym was not near where I lived. So,
So
yung commute pa. 14 pesos papunta pa balik. Mga ganun. Sa pamasahe mura lang. Pero sa gamit talaga, paganda sa training. And I didn't really use any supplements for training. I know a lot of people do usually when they prepare for competitions.
But
Paano mo
was that,
malalaman?
JC, a conscious decision on your part not to use supplements? Or just because you couldn't afford it?
It was expensive. That's the main reason.
I tried to use supplements in terms of ano ba yung pinaka-natural. So I settled on BCAA, which is just basically vitamins and amino acids. But recently I found out I'm allergic to soy. So tinigil ko na yun. I found one that is plant-based, so all natural. It's twice as expensive as the usual. After training, I would drink it. I would recover faster. Yung feeling na wengwang ka, like wala ka sa sarili mo, parang dehydrated ka, tapos puyat ka, yung parang may hangover ka na hindi mo malaman, it would go away. It was nice, but I felt weird after drinking it then. That's because I was allergic to soy. So, conscious decision for me not to take supplements na after training. What I would do was all natural. Compressions in terms of cold compress, hot compress. Pag particularly bad, nagbibiro ka ako kasi prone ako to sipon dahil you know, I'm old for somebody who started grappling 4 years ago. So if you're poor, JC, what do you think is the requirement? How far do you need to go pro? What are the magic ingredients for you to, amateur, pro, how good do you need to be? I'm sure you need to be pretty good.
So if you're poor and you want to start fighting, there are actually options in provinces. Say you want to go into boxing, there's the ABAP, amateur boxing.
So you can be discovered by the amateur.
You can go to their gyms. Some of them offer to train you for free. If they see that you have potential, they'll take you in.
So it's basically an audition.
Yeah, it's just kind of an audition. I remember that because my mom is from Bago City in Negros. They have an ABAP gym there. And according to the people in the area, I have cousins who have tried going to ABAP. People like Onyok Velasco trained there.
Yes. Siya yung parang shining example of, people can do it. It seems like the cost of it is more than a talent audition. And I've heard stories of course, camps and coaches who victimize. That's a pretty concrete cost, diba? Like, your fight purse is halved or sometimes taken all away. May mga camps na ganon. Because you will need a lot of coaches, diba? For you to make it as a pro. Like, how many coaches do you need if you're an MMA fighter? So there's a striking coach.
Yeah, if you're an MMA fighter, there's a striking coach, there's a wrestling coach, there's a BJJ coach, strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, and mindset coach or an interstitial coach. Anything between the cage and the center. So it's kind of like, for Conor McGregor, I think it's Ido Portal. Like, you can add on so many coaches, and then you have a movement coach. Or as Nate Diaz says, calls it touch butt in the park coach. And that's, I think that's very revealing. Na tipong, this game has so many dimensions that movement just adds to it. Kung pro ka na and then you have all these coaches in terms of striking, grappling, tapos conditioning, how much of what you make will go to them? And anong matitira sa'yo? I think the common answer is 10 to 12% of your purse goes to your head coach. And then siya na yung magdidistribute. Your head coach is like everybody's boss. Unless there's an agreement before that is like, mas malaki doon sa SNC coach ko. Because I really needed it this time.
Usually parang mas malaki ang bayad nila sa strength and conditioning coaches. Kasi striking and grappling coaches minsan may mga teams na isa lang yun. Pero usually strength and conditioning coaches mas matataas maningil eh. Mga 3,000-5,000 pesos even for a whole month of say you prepare for like 3 months. So 15,000 agad sa kanila pa lang.
One of the biggest things I would like to know is, are these guys paid before you fight or like afterwards na lang when you get paid? Is when you get paid, then everybody gets paid, or you need to pay them up front?
I think it depends with the coaches eh. Kasi may mga coaches naman na papayag na, let's train and you win or whatever, you compete and then pay me.
Let's talk total purse. How much does a fighter stand to earn?
Let's say it's URCC or Predator, UGB. Ang alam ko, the baseline now is around 20, 30 at the most if you're champion.
20 or 30. Back then, ang mandated kasi by GAB is at least 10,000 pesos. Eh, ngayon, hindi naman nakakasya
Inflation.
sa training nila 10,000 pesos. Yung gastos mo pa lang sa strength and conditioning coach mo, sa striking coach, sa lahat ng coaches mo. So may 5 kang coach, kakasya ba yung 10,000 pesos? I don't think so.
Which is why I guess a lot of fighters just have like 3 coaches.
Yung iba nga, talagang
Just one.
one coach who teaches them, who helps them with everything para lang mabawasan yung gastos.
And it's revealing, I think, that fighters stick to just one coach.
Yeah.
Kasi nga, pwede kayong mag-usap na, Coach, medyo gipit ako ngayon. Pwede bang babawi ako sa next
May
fight?
mga income ng fighter is to coach. Ang usapan nila within the gym is 250 peso
Per client.
per client
Ah.
fee. Sa kanya yung 150. For most coaches, swerte na ang 5 clients eh. So sabihin na natin yun yung max. Aabot ng at least mga 15,000 pesos a month. Swerte na yun. Paano pag may laban pa sila? May pamilya pa, may anak pa.
So wala na.
So I don't think kasha yung 15,000 pesos.
Which is important, I think, in the context of isipin mo kung pro ka and then you have all these, there's a medical, there's a GAB license, of course there's a cost of training. Yung mga gastusin mo in terms of naglalakad lang ng dokumento, di ba, sa pamasahe, pagkain mo, pag wala yung commissioner or whoever, babalik ka pa uli. So parang, damn, right? So let's say all that is done and you get to the fight. What are the costs of actually preparing for the fight? So if you don't make it to the fight, let's say you're injured, ano yung cost nun?
Isa sa main costs nun is wala kang magiging pambayad sa mga
Utang ka sa coach mo, di ba?
Utang ka sa coach mo niyan kasi wala, makakancel ang laban mo eh. Imbis na kumita ka, lalo ka mababaon sa utang niyan.
This is so relevant, JC, I think, because if you are injured, let's say you're injured from a bad weight cut, do you remember that Chinese guy, si Yan Jiangbin, na nag-weight cut back in 2015, and then he died?
That's the reason why they changed the weight division ruling sa one championship. Eh.
They changed it to hydration test.
May hydration testing na.
And they moved everybody else.
Yeah.
They moved all the weight classes, plus 10 pounds. That seems great, but also opened up, as we're seeing today, a whole new system that is prone to abuse. Kasi hindi public yung weigh-ins, di ba, and hydration tests. So that's another cost. Yung tipong, what are you giving up if you are not cutting weight? Are you giving up transparency in performance enhancement and substances abuse, di ba? Kasi hindi public eh. Kailan yung recently, sabi mo, nakita mong live yung weigh-ins?
Itong August, nag-live sila sa wakas.
Because of public pressure, right?
Because of public pressure, nag-live ng weigh-ins and ng hydration testing.
How did you find that? How did you find that move ng tipo? Oy, public na kami.
I've been following that scene eh. Yung sa one championship, if they are ever gonna do it, parang kahit pa paano na-relieve ako na at least, uy, sa wakas, pinakita nyo rin.
Is it enough, you think?
No.
Because a couple of fighters missed weight.
Yeah. May hindi rin nakalaban because he met the weight but failed the hydration test.
So that's another thing, right?
Yeah, that's another thing.
You missed the hydration test, meaning you can't really fight.
Yeah.
So if you missed your weight, the usual cut of the purse is 30%.
Around
I think
20%, 20-30%.
Then it goes to your opponent.
Yeah.
Let's say you're fighting locally to 20 to 30,000. How much is cut from your purse? So kikitain mo na lang 15?
Mga 15 na lang. Tapos saan pa mapupunta?
Saan pa
Wala na
mapupunta
naman
mo?
matitira sa'yo.
So you need to win just to make that. So let's say you're somebody who chronically misses weight, like Kenzie Dern. Recently, she missed 7 pounds. She came in 7 pounds overweight. So obviously, she didn't even try. Diba? Something like that really hurts your chances of earning and begs into question, for me and many other fighters, I think, basic professional level na yung just making weight, diba? And if you make weight, oy, thanks, we're actually fighting on the same level.
How much is a weight cut?
20-30%. So let's say you have a nutritionist, one of the big ones, like si Mike Dolce, who is a nutritionist to the UFC stars, but he's one of those who famously screwed up BJ Penn's weight cut, and he was making, I believe, 15 to 20,000 per month from BJ Penn. So he screwed up the weight cut of BJ Penn and the nutrition, because you're supposed to tell your fighter like what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, diba? So basically, ikaw yung nagluluto dapat. And if you screw that up, there's nobody else to blame except yourself.
Actually, bihira dito talaga yung mga nutritionists nag-offer na services nila sa mga fighters.
I think ang mas common, well, for the grapplers, if you have nutrition goals at the end of, ito lang yung kailangan kong calories, there are catering services that
Yeah, you can order.
you can order like a set.
prepared
Ito,
food
how many calories to?
Mm.
And how much is that? I think one of the packs I saw, it's less than 10K for like a week or two. Yeah. But hindi ko mo na iisipin. I think you're paying for the privilege and the, ito lang kakainin ko, hindi ko naisipin. And at the end of the, what if you missed weight and you were still using one of those screwed up? Who do you blame?
I guess
So-
that's one of the reasons also sa mga walang budget.
Oh, walang budget talaga.
Kamote is the go-to
Kamote is
thing.
the goal. Now, what are the dangers and costs of, let's say you are overmatched, like your opponent is too good, like si Maxim Dadashev, diba? He was taking too
Yeah.
many shots. How does brain trauma figure into it? Like he died from that, right?
Iba yung impact nung nangyari sa kanya doon. At tumagal pa siya ng at least a few days. Went to the hospital. May isa,
What is the other guy? Yeah.
day, si Hugo Santillan.
Mhm.
He died right after the fight. And it was very controversial kasi he's the second guy to die in that week.
How many fighters have insurance?
These fighters usually just sign medical waivers. The nearest na may tumitingin sa ngala is yung EMTs eh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
That's
EMTs who wheel you out, take you to the hospital,
Yeah.
put ice on you, aspirin, whatever.
Yeah.
In grappling, meron din ganun, but they have waivers like you forgo any like legal actions, and you need your teammates or whoever in your corner to take care of you.
13-0 versus 13-0.
Well, I believe that Matias has a real good shot here. I mean, I will not be surprised if Dadashev goes down early in this fight because, the punching power and the pressure.
What was telling to
Matias.
me was the Maxim Dadashev fight, the boxer who died a couple of days later. His coach was begging him.
Yeah, begging him to give up the fight.
Another big shot comes in.
He's hurt. He hurt.
He is hurt here at the end of 11. Undefeated Dadashev is in a tough spot.
That was very emotional for me, I think. Well,
That
yung
was,
experience niya parang,
Sinasabihan na siya na, no, please.
yeah.
Please, Max, please, let me do this, okay? Okay? Look at me. Please.
Let's stop this fight.
I'm going to stop the fight. Max, I'm going to stop
The
it.
guy was
Max, you're getting
saying
hit
no,
too
he
much.
just wanted to finish it.
He was overmatched, I think, right?
I think so.
Masyado magaling yung kaaway.
Oh.
And he wanted to fight, of course. One of the big costs of it during the fight is, of course, bad reffing.
Yeah.
One couple of things that stand out to me na moments ganun is when Valentina Shevchenko fought Priscilla Cachoeira. And Valentina just totally had machine gun shots on this girl, 200 plus shots. And she was being ground and pound, tapos hindi pa tinitigil. Everybody was screaming to stop the fight.
Valentina just absolutely teeing off on Cachoeira, but she's surviving. She's still
The ref there, si Mario Yamasaki, didn't stop it. And basta, it was horrible. It was like watching somebody get beaten to a pulp and to death, almost. And memes coming out of that, yung si Drago in Rocky saying, if she dies, she dies. And another thing that stands out to me is yung sometimes si Herb Dean doesn't stop fights early enough or he stops fights too late. And prime example yan si yung recent na panalo ni Ben Askren sa UFC. Yung debut niya against
Yeah,
Robbie
yeah.
Lawler, Herb Dean thought that Ben Askren had put out Robbie Lawler na with a submission and the bulldog choke. And turns out, oh no, he was not out. And of course, Robbie Lawler, who's a veteran, he's like, come on, I didn't even go out and my fight purse is screwed up because, I didn't win. How many bad refs are there? I guess the normal is like a lot. So we're talking about common injuries,
Mm.
let's say you broke your hand and you go to the hospital, ang sagot lang doon ng fight
Check-ups,
organization is
usually.
check-up. And then, bahala ka na magpa-cast,
Mm.
right?
Kung may kailangan cast, kung may kailangan operation, sagot mo lahat yun.
I remember because there was a fighter, the game Arnold Lipont,
Yeah.
who's a one championship fighter, di ba? Tapos dito ata siya na injure. I think it was because of a TKO or like broken yung nose niya, I think. In terms of aftercare ng organization, I think in the case of one championship, sasagutin nila yung medical expenses mo dapat up to a point until you go back home. Bahala ka na sa buhay mo. Since nandun pa siya sa location where the fight happened, dapat sagutin nila.
Yeah.
Pero I think this was one of the biggest controversies in that year. Because he was neglected at the hospital in a strange country where nobody spoke English in the hospital and naiwan siya doon. And how much is left from you? Oh, so sira ilong mo. Bali kamay mo. Like, magkano yun yung cast? Or
Sabihin,
just having your
normal operation and cast and everything, usually mga 20 to 30,000 pesos.
So that's like if you're a local na undercard
Local.
guy, hindi.
Local undercard guy, siguro. Ang bigay sa kanila, mga 20,000.
So that's the whole fight purse. And if you miss weight,
Kulang pa.
kulang pa, di ba? So yung medical neglect from fight org, that's such a real thing, I think.
It's something that needs to be looked into for sure.
And it's not just that it is what it is. Ganun talaga yung industry thing because happy fighters that are well taken care of, or at least given a fair shake in the medical aftercare, can come back and they will want to come back to fight for you, di ba? One of the biggest snafus in MMA and fighting is if you're injured and you fought and even if you won, but the organization just fails to pay up or just refuses to pay up. Like recently, si Battlefield FC didn't pay their fighters again. How does an organization like this even exist, di ba?
Hindi na nagko-continue eh.
Paano naulit, di ba? So apparently, nung lumabas na di sila magbabayad and so many MMA outlets and media outlets covered it. Magbabayad na daw sila. Bigla.
Did it have to go that route?
I think it kind of did because tatakasan na naman nila yung fighters, di ba? Here you are, injured with your nose broken at 4 a.m. outside the CEO's hotel room and you're saying, babayaran kaya kami. Apparently, umalis na yung CEO. Lumipad na. A lot of the times, the payout or the payment, you need to fall in line, di ba?
Yeah,
like, I've seen this sa URCC.
Sa backstage, pipila kayo lahat to get your pay. I've seen it before sa URCC, sa Blaze FC. This is normal
This
thing.
is their normal thing. Like, people are nursing broken noses, they bruises, their broken arms. Mahirap kasi na rep ata yung kukuha eh. Di ba? Parang ganun.
Mahirap yung... Kasi sila mismo kailangan nilang pumirma that they received the money already. It's in an envelope. May iba doon, kahit kailangan mo nang pumunta sa hospital to get yourself checked. Antayin pa yung pera mo eh. Kung hindi, pupunta ka na sa office the next day or kung kailan man, bago mo makuha.
Kind of the depressing scene eh, no?
Nga.
Yung nakita mo yung ganun. But that's the reality of the
Yeah.
fighting game and the cost of it.
That's what you signed up for, sabi nga nila.
Grabe, no? It is what you signed up for. And yet, when you're faced with it, parang, is this really what I signed up for? I think, JC, why we're talking about this because we've covered a lot of it, and yet there's still a lot of aspects of it, especially like itong pinag-usapan na the abstract and like medyo ethereal. What is the cost of fighting in terms of just not just monetary but social and relationships and basically your way of life. For me, it drives home the point that these are really special individuals for them to keep going back, right?
I think yung mga sinasabi rin ng mga tao sa mga fighters na they should have learned this, learned that, that stuff. I mean,
That's something common that we hear every time.
Mahina kasi yung grappling mo, ba't hindi ka nag-training yan? Yun ang isa sa pinaka-common na maririnig mo eh. Hina ng wrestling mo, hina ng jiu-jitsu mo. Dapat nag-training ka.
Sakit, di ba?
Sakit kasi gusto mo naman talaga mag-train pero wala kang pambayad kasi mahal.
And that drives home the cost of it.
Yeah.
Hindi yung tipong you want to. It's just that you can't afford to. It's like saying, gusto ko maging magaling na race car driver but I can only afford the Miata. So, dun lang ako magte-training. Ganyan.
Kasi ang fighting naman, it's not like you can just go to a gym alone, train by yourself in front of a punching bag and fight the next day. That's not the case.
You're correct
Marami
in
ka
that.
talagang kailangan pagdaanan to be a top fighter.
And it surprises me still that it's a very collaborative sport. Na you need not only the support of your teammates, but a very strong familial system. Just friends who are on the same page as you and who are looking in the same direction as you are. Just in closing, I think the cost of fighting is different for everyone, I think, who enters into it. It's good to be realistic about your goals. There's a lot to be improved and there's a lot to discuss aside from this. But for those who have no choice but to fight, the cost is really high. And as we saw in Maxim Dadashev, who's a Tilyan, it's dying.
Being a fighter, hindi lang puro tapang, hindi lang puro kaya kong lumaban. May skill ako. Pero may budget ka ba to grow your skill? May suporta ka ba to compete?
Never underestimate the cost of fighting. Thanks for listening to the Destroy Manila podcast. On behalf of my co-host, JC, this has been Carl. Please do check out more of our episodes about the inspiring stories in Filipino and Asian fight culture. Find out more of what we're up to, or just let us know what you'd like us to feature. Connect with us on FB, IG, and Twitter. The Destroy Manila podcast is a Puma Podcast production.